Hello and welcome to episode number 214 of Daily Global Insights. I'm your host Sree Iyer, and with me is Sridhar. We have a new format going today, so please bear with us while we set things up here nicely. And here we go. Today is July 30th and Friday. Welcome to Daily Global Insights with Sree and Sree. In global news, Japan daily COVID cases set to top 10,000 for the first time amid Olympics, and the government is set to extend state of emergency to the greater Tokyo and Osaka regions, and Cambodia to impose lockdowns in Thai border areas. Vietnam Prime Minister gains vast powers to contain COVID break in Ho Chi Minh City. Sridharji, how do you see this COVID resurgence again, sir?
Namaskar, very good morning to you under this new format. Very exciting to be on this platform, and so delighted. Firstly, I think as far as this resurgence of the Delta variant is concerned, it is quite disconcerting that we are beginning to see this rise in cases, but they have perimetered this or kept it outside of the Tokyo Olympics arena and those areas, and they're managing it through an emergency measure. You can see now the adjacent nations in ASEAN making the same. Cambodia trying to mitigate people coming from Thailand. Ho Chi Minh City, which has seen rise in cases, being tackled at a war footing. What I see is that most of them is Delta variants. We haven't seen any alarming situations emanate, but we see rapid rate of infection of Delta variant, which is the general research. That's what is pointing out. You may see more infections at a rapid rate, but less types of issues emanating from it. I'm not sure that's very comforting, but the story is that that's the issue.
And U.S. defense chief in Vietnam to bolster ties and work out the arrangements as China fears grow. So across the world, especially in the Southeast Asian region, almost all the governments are nervous about China's intentions, aren't they?
Well, I think they are not only nervous about the intentions, they're also nervous about a vacuum and lack of clarity around the presence of historically United Nations as the peacekeeper, as the trusted arbitrator of keeping peace and acting as deterrents. So I think that's the vacuum they're fearing. Historically, again, not historically, under the Trump era, then you had the Quad, and you would have seen most of the US ships as well as the Indian, Japanese, and Australian ships patrolling the seas. Now there's very less, but there are both the US as well as the other carriers monitoring. So it's important that the US reestablishes itself. And you see Lloyd Austin first visited India, he visited Japan, he met the Australian, then he's now gone to, I think he's finished his trips to Singapore, and he's on his way to Vietnam too. And then I think he's also visiting one other nation, maybe Thailand or Philippines. He's visiting Philippines to redo the deal, the strategic partnership. I think this is a continuation to make sure that there is deterrence.
Israel and United States complete Juniper Falcon military deal. Juniper Falcon is focused on scenarios that would see the deployment of US forces in Israel under fire during a conflict, and Palestinians clash with Israeli troops, causing one death in West Bank. Incendiary balloons are causing fires. That is what was the reason for the death. Sir, this Palestine problem, Israel flare-up, and now this new initiative by US, it all points to only one thing, that there is perhaps going to be a conflict in this region sooner rather than later.
Triple I. Going forward, every time we bring up a topic, we're going to put the map of these 4 flashpoints around the world. Triple I, South China Sea, Himalayan Kingdom, and the Sahel region. We'll put up these 4 maps and just reflect, okay, we're going to this flashpoint. Yes, you made your observation. First and foremost, it's good that United States and Israel is involved in through Juniper Falcon. The second is that Israel is not letting up on these incendiary balloons. We have already defined what a balloon is. It is loaded with some potent weapon, destructive bomb, and then when the balloon bursts, it's supposed to create unequal explosion. So apparently there were some fires that was caused in the Israeli region, and Israel responded, and they've taken, there was a casualty.
And Blinken says that Iran negotiating process cannot go on indefinitely. Rockets hit Baghdad Green Zone, hosting U.S. Embassy, says security forces. Contain Hezbollah before it drags the region into war, says Erdogan of Turkey. Now, this just echoes what I just said, sir. The fight against terrorism is not weakening thanks to cooperation between the Moroccan, Greek, American, Italian, and British security services. This has resulted in the arrest of Abu Muhammad al-Fateh, a Daesh leader. Your thoughts, sir?
Well, I think that first and foremost, I think the Iraq issue continues, which is what Biden discussed. It's a very interesting point. Turkey raised the issue around the Hezbollah. It's very interesting because that's a Turkey-Iran issue in terms of the Hezbollah being active around various parts of the world. Then finally, I think your point around this, cross-conglomeration, coordination, and this Daesh leader who is supposed to have been, they've been monitoring him, is responsible for some, the Moroccans say that he was targeting some areas for potential, terrorist type of activities. I'm glad that they coordinated and completed the arrest. That all these things gives us some element of reassurance that particularly United States is re-engaged. There was a period when there was concern, but now you can see that ignore the China-US confrontation, but US seems to be much more proactively engaged around the most potent region. So that's a very, very reassuring news.
And Armenia considers Russian army posts along its border with Azerbaijan as the fragile peace brokered fails to materialize. Disputes persist around the Nagorno-Karabakh or NK region. So your thoughts, sir?
Well, this is, we reported this few months ago, about this, each other burning villages and so on because of the ethnic compositions that prevailed of one community versus the other in these regions when they tried to separate it. So Russia bordered the truce. Now you are back again, these skirmishes, forming, re-emerging in that region. So I don't know whether there's people really want to live in peace unless and until they are carved out of territories which they feel they belong to. There seems to be a small concentric area, and within that concentric area, these people are creating so much of a mess. This is another flashpoint, but it is not as big as the other four, but nevertheless, it's an irritation.
And US-Russia in nuclear talks huddle in Geneva. The next session is in September. So these nuclear talks have been going on for donkey's years, sir.
They have not reduced their weapons, Sriji.
Well, so I guess we will wait to see what happens in September. Let's take a quick look at United States news. New Chinese ambassador Qin Gang arrives in US with optimism. Why is the optimism, sir? These guys have been on a downhill slope for a long time.
Optimism is he's a diplomat. He has prior US experience. He has dealt with. So there's a hope that they will be able to. I just don't believe that there is rhetoric is going to come on from either side. As we discussed, US as China, Xi Jinping feels he has this moment of reckoning for him to create a place in the history. So we'll see what happens. But it's important somebody is coming here right in the moment of there's a change and someone coming when there is, as you rightly said, when the moment of what you call friction point escalating.
And Department of Justice warns states against violating federal laws with state audits. Now, this is where things kind of get a little murky, isn't it? Do the states have to go to the federal Supreme Court to get all these things sorted out? Your thoughts, sir?
Well, you remember they made a big mess out of Trump's letter to Department of Justice. He said, look, there's fraud going on. This is a Department of Justice case. How come you're sitting quiet and not acting on it? At least you have to say there has to be some kind of an objective amount of assessment that needs to be done, and there has to be some kind of an arbitration and enforcement process. This is what Trump wrote an email. Everybody raised a hue and cry. Now, suddenly what you find that the Republican legislatures in each of these states, most notably Florida as well as Arizona. Now it is spreading to other states like Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and so on. They're saying, hey, we got to do the audits. There seems to be a real, genuine problem. Now, so Department of Justice steps in, obviously at the request of the progressives and Biden administration. Basically, you take a look. So they're taking a preemptive approach, and this could be going down, very difficult waters.
And the CDC director says that vaccine passports may very well be the way forward in the United States. The CDC director continues and says fully vaccinated people must wear masks indoors in some areas. So which these areas are will be made clear, I'm assuming, in the days and weeks to come. And Dr. Anthony Fauci says, I did not flip-flop on masking and vaccine guidance. Well, I think we will let the viewers decide whether he did or not. Your thoughts, sir?
Well, I think this whole CDC directives and Mr. Biden's directives and Dr. Fauci's statements has just made United States look like fools. On one day, no passport. Next day, we have passport. On one day, unvaccinated, vaccinated can have no mask, freely wander around. Next day, vaccinated should have even not only masks, but they have masks in the indoor territory, such as public areas, etc., where you have forums for meeting people, especially in buildings like ours where we live. So I think what it is creating is creating tremendous amount of confusion as to what is right. This is the reason why people are getting a little frustrated on vaccination versus no vaccination.
And Pelosi says Biden doesn't have the power to forgive student loans. Where did this one come from? This is very non-regressive approach.
She's scared that Biden may overrule Pelosi's power in the House. She's saying that, hey, you have to come to me. I have to pass a legislation and give you the authority to override it. Don't do anything silly without consulting me. She's afraid that Biden, in the interest of progressing, may cut a deal with the Republicans and do a few things that basically snaps the power of Nancy Pelosi. That's where it's coming from.
Well, it looks like Biden has more power with the Republican than with the Democrat. I think this is a good idea. Whatever it is, the student loans have gone really over the head for many students, and they spend the first 5 to 10 years of their working life paying back their student loan. Then they have to save for buying a house, save for settling down, and it doesn't augur well. Let's see how this plays out. Biden calls on Congress to extend nationwide eviction ban before it expires. White House and congressional Democrats trade blame. This moratorium, every month now. It used to be 3 months at a time. Now it is happening 1 month at a time. And I don't know where the end is going to be in sight. Your thoughts on how this moratorium thing is playing out and what you feel is going to be the final position.
Schumer strikes a deal. Some of the House Democrats feel left out because they feel the progressive agenda is off. Nancy Pelosi says the reconciliation bill of $3.5 trillion is not part of it, so therefore we will not be signing it off. Then you have the progressive groups, which is effectively saying nothing. This bill will not get approved at all. So you have three sets. And then Democrats within the Senate fighting with each other, Democrats within the House fighting with each other because they're scared that Biden, Schumer, and these 17 or 18 Republicans, they may bypass and get something through. What do I see? I see the full $3.5 trillion plus the $1 trillion one way or the other way getting passed, and it may not be bipartisan.
And Nancy Pelosi is facing a revolt from Democrats opposed to her plan to hold hostage the infrastructure bill. And Nancy Pelosi is insisting that Senate pass a $3.5 trillion reconciliation package of social welfare programs. Childcare, elder care workers, all eyed for taxpayer-funded hike in Democrats' welfare expansion program. So, expecting the government to give you handouts, this is the hallmark of socialism. And US is supposed to be the captain of the capitalism industry.
So what we're witnessing is indirect and direct influencers and activism and expansionism. First and foremost, the child care and the elderly care. there is a set wage that is set by the determined when you go to the local administration and councils and so on. They are set around $11 to $12, which people say is not the right amount. We agree. That's number one. Number two, they're saying, now these groups are saying, hey, the taxpayer has to fund it. Taxpayer has to fund the compensation of these people in the interest of, for what? Then their argument is that you have to fund it because we are minorities and economically backward. So you are earning money, so therefore you fund us so we can look after this elderly and needy. This is what they're saying. Historically in United States, that anyone who wants to buy a service, you pay for a service. There's no discrimination between one versus the other. $15, you pay $15 and you get it done. So what happens to the economically weaker sections of the society? There may be various government grants, etc., which they can apply for, and there's some budget from the local that they can pass on. But to legitimize this as a taxpayer-funded scheme to raise the minimum wage and make it unilateral calls for deeper malice and deeper trouble to the whole economic system of United States. So this is the beginning point where everybody says you pay from the taxes.
He doesn't fight. Trump slams Mitch McConnell for helping advance the Biden $1.2 trillion infrastructure plan. Elise Stefanik says GOP will fight until we fire Nancy Pelosi once and for all and save America. Sir, so the Republicans are dead set against Nancy Pelosi. Some in her own party are against her, and yet she is managing to hold on. Now, what I read last time she got re-elected as a House leader is that this was going to be her last term. What are your thoughts, or does she still have a burning ambition to become president of the United States?
No, I don't. I think that this is probably her last term, either by choice or by an outcome. So I think that the Republicans are very keen. They're working hard to regain. Even assume that they narrow the gap. That's good enough for Nancy Pelosi to be ousted. There's already disgruntled House Democrats, who will join ranks with the Republicans and make sure that she is not in the seat, but somebody else is in the seat. That's what I see.
And Texas governor issues order to block COVID-19 immigrants from leaving the border. House Republicans demand restart of Trump wall in a new border security strategy. Vice President Kamala Harris unveils strategy to address illegal immigration at the border crossing. Sir, I'd like your comment before I weigh in with my own, sir.
Great. First and foremost, I think Abbott is doing a great job, and he's bringing the law enforcement. He's brought additional resources, so that's the right thing. Oh my God. Ms. Harris thinks she has to go back. They've released a white paper. We can share the white paper. They've released a white paper which basically says you need to look at the broader strategic issues as to why the Central Americans are fleeing and coming to United States. Lack of infrastructure, capital, and development. No, let alone we having challenges in communities in the United States. They want to go and fund the Central Asian countries. That is the scope of the white paper. They think that is the reason. Now, here's the hypocrisy. These fellows are coming in, they're letting them in with or without COVID. The Cubans are coming in, then they're driving them back. In Cuba, the problem is they're opposing communism, whereas here, these people are coming in, come what may, because they're coming for jobs. They're not coming in because there is a roasting communism that is mitigating them. So you can see the hypocrisy, and this is the whole structure of the policy that is being laid out. And now they want to dump more money into those countries from the taxpayers' money. This is the fallacy of this, this policy that they're talking about.
And Republicans question the treatment of jailed rioters that supporters call as Biden's political prisoners. Does it have something to do with the January 6th insurrection, sir?
It is January 6th. So this is as part of the January 6th, this big tamasha that is going on, or the big buffoonery that is going on, where only people who oppose Trump are part of the panel. Anybody who is objective is kicked out of the panel. And these are the people who are saying, what's happened to those guys inside? Can you give us some insights as to what's happening to those guys who are in the prison? Why are they in the prison? You have told them that they're all pro-Trump supporters. Who are the cops who are kind of giving you evidence? They all seems to be anti-Trump. So the question, therefore, is, please give us the status. So this is what is going on. It's very sad in a
And
democracy.
let's take a look at India news. Sir, I just want to have your comment on what you thought was the outcome of Blinken's meeting with India's external affairs minister, particularly in context of Afghanistan and Pakistan. This is a question from Anup Kumar Nanda, one of our viewers.
The way I look at it is that it is one thing is very clear: message and the human interactions. There seems to be a lot of synergies between Mr. Blinken, Mr. Jaishankar, and his general disposition towards Prime Minister Modi. And the message that he brought from Mr. Biden also seems to emanate the same sentiments. So that's very positive in that context. Behind the scenes, in the scenes, they are very keen to work something out to address the issues around Afghanistan. Afghanistan is a difficult situation. And the story is, what do I come? I mean, Afghan is going to be an unsolved problem with more troubles to come. And this constitutional continuity that both Modi, Taliban, Mr. Ashraf Ghani, and US and others are aspiring for, I very much doubt what the definition of the constitutional continuity is. So what do I say? I say that from a messaging, image, content, everything looks good. On the substantive outcome, on specifics, I think it lacks details. That's the problem. Whether we will have something in the next 6 months, I don't know, but details are lacking.
And let's take a quick look at India news again. Over 70% of the equipment used in India's wind-powered project is made in India. Strategic disinvestment programs of BPCL, Air India, BEML, SCI, and LICIPO are on track despite COVID-19 constraints. I'm sure many of you know what these acronyms mean. 22.7 lakhs worth, about rupees 2,243 crores worth of loans were dispersed to street vendors per the Prime Minister's Swanidhi scheme. So this is an excellent initiative as the people come back to the a post-COVID world with a little bit of a normalcy in place. This kind of a loan is an excellent initiative. So how do you think this is going to play out? Is it going to benefit everyone? But what about the middle class? Somehow Mr. Modi seems to not remember that there is 1/6 of US Indian population that is middle class.
I think Modi is combining the principles of socialism with the principles of free market. The first point that you alluded to is the free market, which is governments are not in running businesses. So he is diluting many of those public sector utilities or undertakings, as is called in India. So he's taking money from there and he's saying, okay, I'm filling the revenue side of the balance sheet. What does the revenue side comprises of? Taxes and duties and so on and so forth. He finds that that is not enough to meet all these various social expansion programs. So therefore, he is trying to cough up. He doesn't want to borrow too much, but he is, they took close to 10% of GDP as part of the stimulus. So therefore, I think that this is coming. Now, he is covering the revenue side. Now, there was a big hue and cry that was made, which is to say, the MSME segment seems to have been to some extent addressed in his program. The large cap segment is addressed through PLI and the credit expansion that has occurred and credit support guarantees. What about us, the street vendors who make up the bulk of the industry? What about us? We're not. So he's expanding this program. There's one important activity, how far that matures and evolves, which you would be reading, but I'm going to step ahead, which is the unorganized sector database. Now, this is the unorganized sector database because this may become a vehicle for them to bring them mainstream. And in that case, they will now be able to do very similar to DBT, which they did to the deprived segments of the society. There may be a vehicle by which they can do this. So the program in its construction is very good because that's a segment that got very, very, very badly affected, the hawkers and street vendors during the COVID situation. Clearly, they are trying to provide the support. The effectiveness of the program will be determined by execution, and execution in India generally succeeds if there is no man in the middle. Just as there is no man in the middle when you have, spamware and spyware and others attacking you, So if there is no man in the middle and everything is digital, it works. I hope that's the case.
And Modi government invests over 17,000 crores in the last 5 years on airports and has revived 59 airports. India's nuclear power capacity will triple in the next 10 years and will touch around 22,480 megawatt, that is 22,000 gigawatts by 2031. India is executing 7 lithium exploration projects. India is really, really pushing hard on its energy needs and trying to address them and stay ahead of the eight ball curve, in my opinion. So, your thoughts?
Well, I think that these initiatives reflect that India is continuing to expand its domestic energy expansion program, keeping in mind the climate agenda. India probably will be one of the few countries which will meet the goals. That's number one. Number two, these precious or rare resources is now a global, basically, if there is a significant demand. I'm glad that India is excavating and focusing on this. This will not only form the basis of the wafer, the chip, which is required almost in anything and everything one does, but also in some of the batteries, high energy batteries, but low energy consumption, which is used by vast segments of the society. I'm glad that they're moving down the path. We want to make one observation. All the stuff that we focus in DGI on India is around the economic development and market expansion programs, plus the defense deterrence that India is putting in place. We don't quite deliberately touch on the political, which Sree covers in very detailed manner through his various other fireside chats. So this program summarizes and synthesizes all the economics, which you don't get unless you're reading in some economic publication. So that's the objective.
And inflation will moderate and expect it to be below 6% in July, according to the chief economic advisor of India. Process of creating unorganized sector database to commence next month. You already touched upon this. Tibet House Director Dorji expresses concern about Chinese CCP in his meetings with Anthony Blinken. Located in the Sistani Balochistan province, the Quad Working Group will meet and discuss the use of Chabahar port. This was part of Blinken-Dr. Jaishankar discussions. And maritime security, peacekeeping, counter-terrorism, key issues, says Ambassador Trimurthy, as India assumes the UNSC presidency. This is a big moment. I did not see any mention of this in MSM. So your thoughts, and then we'll try and see if we can pick up some of the questions from our viewers. Please go ahead, sir.
So it's a great, the UNSC presidency is a great moment and great opportunity for India. It is going to be given an opportunity to demonstrate and see. They've already set the priorities. It requires India to work and build a consensus amongst the various differing mindset members. So that's number one. Number two, this Chabahar port is a very interesting development between Blinken and Jaishankar. It remains to be seen how they execute it. So I think the fact that Blinken took time to meet with the Tibetans, we should send a very clear signal to the Chinese that Tibetan is not off the agenda, and it's India which is supporting Tibet and not any other nation. Tibetan government in exile is in India, so therefore it is strategic for India as well.
So there's a question from Sneha. My question, why are opposition parties in India going to Blinken and complaining against Modi government? Why is Blinken giving them a hearing? But if I remember correctly, even previous visits, sometimes the leader of the opposition will meet with the visiting dignitary, usually at the prime minister, president level. That is a hallmark of democracy. Everybody's views are, aired. It is up to the opposition person to understand this is my country. I may have a lot of disagreements with my government, but when it comes to talking about my country to a visiting person, I shall project the best foot forward. This is what I would expect. Your thoughts, sir?
Well, I think first and foremost, it's a United States protocol that they reach across all cross sections of the people. They also meet industry if they have a time window. If we had 2 days, they would have met the industry as well. So therefore, they will try to meet, and which is with full consent of the government. There's nothing surreptitious or nothing malicious. They meet all members of the party and hear their views. They also, I think, met with some people, just as you, Sneha G, has pointed out, that they met and even heard views of anti-Modi. So similarly, if Modi G comes here, he will be hosted both by Republicans. He will be hosted by Democrats quite separately. If you recall, when Dr. Jaishankar came here, he was asked to meet some of the Democratic Party caucus members. So he met with some of them. Those who were hostile to him, he chose not to meet. And he said, I have nothing further to discuss with them. So it's just a due protocol that is followed. And that doesn't mean that they have to do or follow, and they make their policies independent.
And let's take a look at markets. Amazon posts third 100 billion quarter in a row and misses revenue expectations. EPS, that is earnings per share, of $15.12 versus 12.30 per share. Revenue of 113 billion versus 115.2 billion. That was the expected revenue. And all indices are finishing higher despite modest economic contraction of GDP in second quarter, 6.5% annualized rate relative to 8.4% expected. Sir, with your permission, I'd like to bring up a picture of all the indices, and then perhaps you can talk to that, sir. Just give me 1 second here while I bring it up. Here we go.
Right.
It's up, sir.
Okay, great. So if you take a look at the Dow Jones index, it's around 35,000, which is we're well past the year-end targets. S&P is at 4,400, well past the target. NASDAQ, well past. So all the indices in terms of indexes are well past. Indices is British, indexes is American, so we use this very seamlessly. So the story is that these numbers are reflective of the market sentiments. Despite the economic downturn, despite lesser outcome in terms of economic expansion relative to prediction, why the numbers are up? The numbers are ignoring, saying there's enough liquidity in the system, the rates are low, we will continue to see this positive momentum. That's what is causing the uptick. The gyrations are only sentiments, but basically the markets are on a steady state, and they're already met the year-end targets which is set out. As far as the oil is concerned, it dropped off the $76, so which is a good news, especially not the Brent crude, but the oil, the crude is around 73, which is again a reasonably good news. And a bad news if you are in the $43, $46 ticket size per. Then you had, if you talk about the US 10-year rates, look at the 10-year rates, 1.26%. 1.26% is an astronomical rate in terms of still financing your short-term and medium to long-term mortgages. This is the reason why the right-hand side chart gives you why the left-hand side chart looks different. The right-hand side chart says the rates are low. The left-hand side says the markets are up exactly for the same reason that we outlined. Look at Japan and look at the 10-year Deutsche, what do you call it? Yeah. Okay, so you have rates below 1%. So therefore, money is available provided you have a viable kind of a program to fund and expand your market.
Excuse me, sir. Just had to let that out. Okay, so let's get back to one last question before we wind up. This is from Akshay Dorwat. Why is China government hurting so much to China's own technology companies and bleeding them by billions of dollars? This is, we saw this thing, Didi and other things in the New York Stock Exchange. China was putting some curbs and their stocks were nosediving. The viewer wants to know your opinion on that, sir.
There are three reasons. First and foremost reason is China's tech companies or Chinese companies' policies cannot be used by overseas countries and institutions to dictate policies to China. That's number one. The second reason is China has learned considerably the lessons what the tech companies can inflict on democratically elected governments. They say they're not going to do that to us in any way, even economically or otherwise. They're not going to do to us. That's the second reason. I think the third reason is that China's Communist Party, CCP's policy is always to have control over anything, everything that moves, shakes, and runs. And they do not want public investors to be driving. They want the Chinese government. So hence, they are willing to drain billions of market cap, hurt a lot of people in the process, and take them back. We saw that already in Alibaba and Ant Financial.
And that brings us to a close of our new look hangout, Daily Global Insights. And next week, we're going to try a slightly different approach. And I think we're going to stick to that. We will have Daily Global Insights on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And then we will skip Friday and we'll have it on Saturdays at a little bit later time. We will give you all the details. I hope you liked our new format. We will try and answer questions if we have the time. Today, we definitely try to answer all your questions, but we also please realize that there may be a time constraint sometime because we need to keep this thing within a small bound. Thank you once again, Sridharji. I hope I didn't cause too much disruption for you in terms of trying to adjust to a new format, but I think it was a lot of fun. A lot of people seem to have liked it. Please give us a thumbs up. Please do click on the bell button to get notifications. We are striving hard to try and bring you the best quality programming. By the way, today's aired at 1080p. Thanks for watching. Namaskar.
Namaskar. Thank you so much. And congratulations to Sree Iyer and his entourage of team members who have, put up actually a brilliant platform. It's an interesting experience for me, watching and simultaneously, getting views and seeing the tickers, etc., etc. In the previous, it was asynchronous. I can only see Sree Iyerji, not the rest of the staff, but now this is a fantastic achievement on day one. Congratulations to everybody.
Thank you very much, sir. Namaskar.
Namaskar and have a good day.